All right, ready to dive into something you might not think would be super interesting.
Okay, hit me.
White space in direct mail marketing.
Ah, you mean like the empty space you see on a page?
Exactly. And turns out it can be surprisingly impactful.
I'm intrigued.
You sent over a bunch of articles about, well, first, common design mistakes in direct mail,
Right.
and of course, tips on using white space effectively,
Yeah.
and even some really cool insights from this marketing expert named Robert Lee.
Okay, what's he all about?
Well, he's doing some really interesting things with QR codes to kind of bridge traditional and digital marketing.
Oh, that's smart. Using those old school tactics, but giving them a modern twist.
Exactly. So our mission today is to help you create direct mail that doesn't just end up in the recycling bin.
Right, make it actually work.
Make it stand out and get results. And of course, we want to help you avoid common pitfalls that basically just waste money.
Always good advice.
So let's start with those common design mistakes, those articles you sent over. What were some of the big ones that you noticed?
I mean, one of the most frequent mistakes, and we've all seen this, neglecting macro white space.
Okay, so for people who aren't familiar with that term, explain what that means.
Sure. So macro white space refers to those larger areas of white space, like around the edges of your mailer,
Okay.
between sections or around your main message.
Gotcha.
It essentially acts like a visual breathing room, gives you that space so it prevents that feeling of clutter, that overwhelming feeling.
Yes.
And did you know there was this study that actually found that calls to action, those all-important calls to action?
Yes. Gotta have them.
When they're surrounded by less clutter, they actually see a huge increase in conversion rates, up to 232% actually.
Wait, 232%? That's incredible.
It is. That's not just a little nudge in the right direction, it's a massive leap.
I'm starting to see why you called white space a secret weapon earlier.
Right.
So if we think about those cluttered mailers that we all dread, what is going on psychologically that makes white space so effective?
Well, I think our brains just crave order and simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
When we're confronted with too much information visually, it actually creates this cognitive overload. It's stressful.
Yeah, absolutely.
White space allows our brains to just relax, to focus on those key elements and process the information more easily.
So instead of like shouting at your audience with this jumbled mess, you're kind of inviting them in with a nice, clear, well-organized message.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm actually feeling calmer just thinking about it.
Right.
One of the articles you shared actually went beyond just that macro white space
Right.
and talked about something called micro white space.
Right. So micro white space is a little bit different.
What's the difference?
It refers to the smaller spaces within your design. So the space between lines of text, that's called leading.
Okay.
Between letters, that's called kerning. And around images or icons.
Okay, so it's all the little details.
Yeah, and it might seem insignificant, but it plays a crucial role in readability.
Okay, so macro white space is like creating this well-organized room.
Yeah, like a nice, clean, organized room.
And micro white space is making sure you can actually read the titles of the books on the shelf.
Yeah, a great analogy.
So how do we put all this white space goodness into practice? Like, are there any techniques we can use?
Oh, absolutely. So one powerful technique is called framing.
Okay, I like it already.
You're strategically placing white space around key elements to draw the eye and create emphasis.
Okay, so give me an example of that.
So imagine you have this bold headline about a hot new property listing.
Yeah, okay.
And it's surrounded by ample white space. You can't miss it.
Okay.
That's framing in action.
It's like putting a spotlight on the most important information.
Exactly.
Speaking of importance, that call to action, where does white space come into play there?
A lot of people make this mistake. They cram the call to action into this tiny little corner. Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Or they bury it in a giant paragraph of text.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to see it.
No.
Give it some breathing room. You're basically signaling to the reader this is important.
Right.
And they're much more likely to take action if you do that.
So like, for example, putting a call to action in a colored box surrounded by a lot of white space.
Exactly.
Much more inviting than those tiny little cluttered calls to action you usually see.
Yes, and it works.
What other techniques can we use?
Another technique is creating what's called a visual hierarchy.
Okay.
Using white space.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use different font sizes, different weights and spacing to really guide the reader's eye through the information in a logical way.
Oh, okay.
For instance, larger fonts and more white space around headlines.
Right.
Slightly smaller fonts and less white space around subheadings.
Okay.
And then even smaller fonts for that body text.
So it's not just using white space. It's about using it strategically to create a flow, to create a sense of importance.
This is feeling more like an art form now than just a design element.
It kind of is.
And speaking of art, that's a good segue to talk about our marketing expert, Robert Lee.
Oh, yeah? Him.
He's really taking this concept of white space to the next level.
So what makes his approach so unique? He's found this brilliant way to bridge the gap between, traditional direct mail and the digital world.
Okay, how so?
He's using QR codes.
Those little square barcodes you can scan with your phone.
Exactly.
Clever.
Yeah, so he strategically places these QR codes on his mailers.
Okay.
And it creates this seamless transition from the physical piece to the online content.
Oh, that's really cool. It's a way to extend the reach of your direct mail.
Oh, exactly.
But I am curious, what kind of content are people actually linking to? Is it just, basic information about the property or service?
It goes way beyond that.
Oh,
He's
right.
creating these interactive experiences,
Okay.
personalized landing pages,
Wow.
and even opportunities to capture really valuable data.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear more about this. So give me an example.
All right, so imagine you're a real estate agent.
Yeah, okay.
And you're sending out a mailer featuring this stunning new property.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just listing those dry details,
Right.
you could include a QR code that takes them on a virtual tour.
Oh, wow.
So they can experience the property as if they were actually there, walking through the rooms, checking out the backyard.
So much more engaging than just looking at, static photos.
It is. It really takes that concept of show, don't tell to a whole new level.
I love it. And you mentioned data capture.
Right?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I know data privacy is a huge concern these days.
Absolutely. And he's very mindful of that.
Okay, good.
His approach focuses on gathering first-party data.
Okay, remind me what that is again.
Yeah, it's basically information that people willingly provide to you.
Okay, so it's not like you're buying lists of names and contact information from some random data broker.
No, not at all.
Okay.
This is about connecting with people who have already expressed interest in what you have to offer.
That. So how does it work with the QR codes?
So when someone scans a QR code on one of his mailers,
Yeah.
they might be taken to a landing page
Okay.
where they can sign up for more information, maybe download a market report, request a consultation.
Okay, so that's all first-party data because they're choosing to provide that information.
Exactly. And that type of data is gold for personalization.
Why is that?
Well, you can segment your audience based on the information they provided, right?
Right.
And then you can tailor your follow-up messages accordingly.
So instead of sending out a generic email blast to everyone who just signed up for your newsletter or whatever,
Yeah.
you can send much more targeted messages.
Right, that address their specific interests and needs.
It's got to be way more effective than just the spray and pray approach.
It is because, let's be honest, people are bombarded with so much marketing these days.
Oh, yeah.
They're just going to tune out anything that doesn't feel relevant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personalization cuts through all that noise.
It makes people feel seen and understood.
It does, and it's about building relationships, not just blasting out messages.
Speaking of building relationships, one of the things that struck me about Robert Lee's work is that he's not just laser focused on the digital side of things.
No, he's not.
He still sees so much value in that initial physical touch point of direct mail.
He does.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there's a certain tangibility to direct mail.
Right.
You just don't get that with digital marketing.
I see what you mean.
It's something people can hold in their hands, something that actually stands out.
Yeah, because we get so many emails and social media notifications
Exactly.
that a physical piece of mail can really make an impression,
It can. It's almost like a little gift.
especially if it's well-designed and visually appealing.
Especially, yeah.
So what kind of advice would you give to someone who really wants to create direct mail that stands out in that crowded mailbox?
The first thing is invest in high-quality design and printing.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
This is a representation of your brand.
Right.
You want it to look professional, inviting, visually appealing. Don't be cheap, like on the paper stock or the photography or the overall design.
I'm picturing those sleek, minimalist mailers with striking images and just a touch of well-placed text.
Yeah, less is more.
Definitely. What else?
Another tip is to think beyond just listing those features and benefits.
Okay.
Try to incorporate storytelling into your mailers.
Oh, I like that.
People connect with stories.
Give me an example.
So instead of just saying, this house has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms,
Yeah.
you can tell a story about a family finding their dream home,
Okay.
or A couple creating a lifetime of memories in this cozy little cottage.
That's so much better. It brings those dry facts to life.
It does, and don't be afraid to inject some of your personality.
All right, people can spot a generic mass-produced mailer from a mile away.
They can.
They want to feel like they're connecting with a real person.
Exactly. Authenticity is so important. And remember, consistency is key.
Okay, explain that.
Sending out those one-off mailers might get you a couple responses here and there,
Okay.
but it's the consistent touch points that build relationships and establish trust.
It's like nurturing a plant. You need to water it regularly to see it grow.
Exactly.
So are you saying instead of just doing a massive mailing once a year, it's better to do smaller, more targeted mailings throughout the year?
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about the timing and the relevance of your mailings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Are you sending out holiday-themed mailers? Market updates tailored to specific neighborhoods? Invitations to local events?
Oh, those are good ideas.
It's all about adding value and staying top of mind.
It's almost like creating a content calendar for your direct mail, just like you would for your social media or email marketing.
It is, yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
And as you're creating that content, I imagine it's important to tie it back to your overall marketing strategy.
Right, of course.
So how does direct mail fit into that multi-channel approach?
Yeah.
Are you using it to drive traffic to your website, generate leads, build brand awareness?
All of the above.
So it's not just a standalone tactic anymore.
No.
It's really about weaving it into this larger tapestry of marketing efforts.
It is, and by incorporating those digital elements, the QR codes, the personalized landing pages, you can actually track the effectiveness of your mailers.
Oh, that's great.
And you can see how they contribute to those overall marketing goals.
So it's not just sending it out and hoping for the best.
Right.
It's about creating a strategic system
Exactly.
that allows you to measure those results, make data-driven decisions.
Exactly. And that brings us to another crucial point, scaling.
Okay.
As your business grows, how do you maintain that personalized touch while reaching a wider audience?
That's a good question.
It's where things get tricky, especially for real estate agents, you know?
Yeah.
They're often working independently or with small teams.
Right. And I imagine a lot of our listeners are probably grappling with that question right now.
They probably are.
They're probably feeling a bit overwhelmed at this point.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty of scaling in the final part of our deep dive.
We are. So stay tuned. We've got some great insights to share.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into white space and direct mail marketing.
We are.
We talked about creating mailers that stand out, personalizing that experience,
Right.
even integrating those digital elements like those QR codes.
Right.
But now let's tackle the challenge of scaling these efforts.
Okay.
I mean, it's one thing to create a beautiful, personalized mailer for a handful of clients.
Right.
But how do you maintain that level of quality and attention to detail when you're dealing with, like, hundreds or even thousands of potential leads?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's a challenge a lot of real estate agents face as their businesses grow.
Yeah.
They start to feel like they're drowning in this sea of tasks.
I can imagine.
Designing the mailers, writing the content, managing the data, sending the follow-ups. It gets overwhelming.
It does, because you're trying to be like a master marketer, a tech guru, a data analyst, a top-notch real estate agent, like all at the same time.
Exactly.
So how do you prevent burnout and create a system that can actually handle that growth?
Automation.
Okay, but I have to admit, I'm a little wary of automation. I don't want to come across as like impersonal or robotic.
Right. Right.
Especially in real estate. It's all about building those relationships, and those are built on human connection.
Of course.
So how do you automate things without losing that human touch?
That's a great question. The key is to use automation strategically.
Okay.
It shouldn't replace human interaction.
Right.
Think of it more as a way to enhance your human touch, to free up your time so you can actually focus on those high-value activities that really require your personal attention.
So instead of spending hours manually sending out individual emails, you can set up an automated email sequence.
Exactly.
That's triggered when someone, say, scans a QR code on your mailer or visits your landing page.
Right.
So you're still nurturing those leads.
Yes.
But you're doing it in a way that's efficient and scalable.
And that's where that first-party data we talked about before becomes so valuable.
Right.
You've collected all this information on their interests and preferences, so you can really tailor those automated emails to be highly relevant and personalized.
So instead of sending that generic, thanks for visiting my website email to everyone.
Right.
You can send out targeted messages that address, specific needs or interests.
Exactly. Like if someone downloaded a market report on a specific neighborhood,
Oh, yeah.
you can send them a follow-up email with listings in that area.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe an invitation to a local open house. And within those automated emails, you can still incorporate those personal touches.
Right.
Mentioning their name, referencing a previous conversation, maybe even adding a handwritten note at the bottom.
I love that.
It's those little details.
Those little details make people feel valued.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's about finding that sweet spot between automation and personalization.
It is.
You're leveraging technology to streamline your processes, but you're not letting it take over that human element of your business.
And as your business grows and you start to implement more automation, it's really crucial to have clear systems and processes in place.
Okay.
Think of it like creating a roadmap for your direct mail marketing.
I like that.
You want to document each step of the process.
Okay.
From designing the mailer to tracking the results and make sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently.
It's like having a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
Where each part works in perfect harmony with the other. But even with the best systems in place, there's always going to be that element of unpredictability. Right?
Yes.
The market shifts, trends change, technology evolves. How do you stay adaptable and ensure that your direct mail marketing remains effective over time?
Data.
Okay, tell me more.
Data is your compass. It's what's going to guide you through those ever-changing waters.
I like that.
Remember those QR codes and personalized landing pages?
Yes.
They're not just there to look fancy.
Right.
They're powerful tools for gathering data.
Right.
You can track who scanned those codes, who visited your website, who downloaded your content, and that data lets you see what's resonating, what's falling flat, what needs to be adjusted.
It's like having this constant feedback loop.
It is.
So you can continually refine your approach and make sure you're always putting your best foot forward.
Exactly.
And as you're analyzing that data, don't be afraid to experiment.
Right. Try different headlines, different images, different calls to action. See what gets the best response, and then, double down on those strategies.
It's all about testing, iterating, and optimizing.
Yes.
And as you're scaling your business, it's also important to remember you don't have to do everything yourself.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, trying to do everything yourself is a recipe for burnout.
It is. So as your business grows, delegating tasks becomes essential.
It does.
So you might want to think about bringing on a virtual assistant.
Sure.
To handle those administrative tasks, a graphic designer to create those eye-catching mailers, or a social media manager to keep your online presence active.
All great ideas.
It's about building a team of specialists who can support you.
And free you up to do what you do best.
Exactly, which is building those relationships, closing deals, and growing your business.
Exactly. And remember, building a team isn't just about delegating tasks.
Right.
It's about creating a collaborative environment where everyone feels valued and empowered.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have a strong team in place, scaling your business becomes a much smoother and more enjoyable process.
Well, this has been a truly enlightening deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From the psychological power of white space to the strategic use of automation and data.
Yes.
So as we wrap up, what's that one piece of advice you'd give to our listener who's ready to take their direct mail marketing to the next level?
Don't underestimate the power of this tactic. It seems simple, but direct mail, when done right, it can be a game changer. Embrace those digital tools, build a strong team, and focus on creating that system that can handle growth without sacrificing quality or personalization.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Don't be afraid to experiment. Learn from those mistakes and celebrate those successes along the way.
Well said. And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and strategies that you can use right away. Remember, in a world overflowing with all this digital noise, a well-designed, personalized piece of mail can cut through the clutter and make a lasting impression.